Hey, and happy Monday. Welcome back to the weekly vlog. Today I'm going to tell you an update on our foster care journey, and I'm going to get a little more detailed than I have before about what the process is, really the judicial side of the process, the court side of the process. So I've talked about what it's like for me being the foster parent, but when are the meetings? When are the court dates? What can you kind of expect? Because when I was first getting into this, I looked at all of the vlogs of foster parents talking about it because every case is different, but the timelines are supposed to kind of be the same thing, but what could happen at each different court date and each different meeting, and what should you expect? So I'm going to share all of that with the details left out of the specific cases. Now that I've gone through the first month of the process twice and the first 3 months of the process once, I can talk about what to expect at the different times a little bit differently than I could have when I got started. The one thing to know is that every state is different and every county is different. So my first case was in Washington County. My second one was in Sullivan County. They work differently. They do things slightly differently. Also, your own social worker, the kid's social worker rather, is going to be different from case to case. They're going to have their own ways of doing things, ways of communicating, things they'll be happy to tell you, things they won't be happy to tell you. My new philosophy is ask all of the questions I assume they won't answer, and some people will answer them. So I was afraid the first time to ask questions. I didn't know what they could tell me, what they couldn't. It's up to them to decide to tell me or not. I should just go on and ask because I might be surprised by what they decide to say, because it's going to make me a better parent to the child if I have as much information as possible. The thing you got to know before we get into this is that the goal of DCS, Department of Child Services, is reunification with the birth family. Now you might be thinking, wait, this child came into care because somebody in the birth family did something, or somebody that they were living with did something that hurt them, either abuse or neglect, or drugs or something. Well, yes. So reunification doesn't necessarily mean with a person who is the reason they entered care, or the parent or the family member that's the reason they entered care. It's reunification with anyone in the child's family or life to maintain those familial connections and their sense of belonging throughout their life. So that's DCS's goal with every kid who comes into care. That goal changes when the people in the family do not work towards that reunification, but typically not until after a year at least. However, if the parents completely disappear, it's considered abandonment after 4 months, but that is with absolutely no contact. With the idea firmly in mind that the goal is reunification, here's how the process has tended to work for us. I just say, to be super clear, everybody's case is different. So I'm going to share how the system should work, like especially the courts and the dates and the timelines, and then I'll share the what's the word for it? Kind of the ways that ours did not follow the timeline, both cases that we've had. So we've had 2 foster placements at this point. And hopefully that'll help you if you are thinking about doing this. And if you're not thinking about doing this, you just want an update on my life because you are one of my friends or, one of my friends online or one of the podcast listeners, then hopefully this will give you a little insight into it. And at the end, I'll tell you how our last case wrapped up. So a kid comes into care, DCS's, so CPS, in every state it's called something different. In Tennessee, CPS, Child Protective Services, gets a referral from a doctor, a hospital, a neighbor, a friend, a teacher, somebody says, hey, I think something's going on here. And they step in and they research it. They investigate it is the word they use. Their investigation can take 2 seconds. Like if a baby is born addicted in the hospital, they gather all that information and then they pass the case to DCS, Department of Child Services. It's called different things in different places. And then DCS has an emergency placement social worker, depending on the size of your county. They might have 1, they might have 5. Our county has 2. They get on the phone. They go down a spreadsheet of possible foster parents, people who have been licensed and approved to be foster parents. They start calling and say, we have a newborn baby, we have a 3-month-old, we have a 2-year-old, we have a 14-year-old who came into custody. These are just a little bit of the details. We literally have no idea what's going to happen next. Can you take them in your house? At the same time, and this is really big in the state of Tennessee, there's someone in, I don't know what the department's called, but the gist of it is they're looking for a kinship placement. So they get on the phone and they are looking everywhere for a possible kinship placement. And a kinship placement 90% of the time means, that's not a real number, that's just off the top of my head. It means a family member, but it could also mean a very close family friend. So if a mom has a baby that's born addicted, the kinship placement could be her sister, her mom. It could also be her best friend. If the kid is 10 years old, it could be somebody who's been involved in their life for a long time, even if they're not directly related. Say you have a neighbor who, the kid spends all their time with. That could be a possible kinship placement. A kinship placement means the kid is still in foster care, and whoever is going to be that kinship foster care person has to go to the foster parent classes and get licensed as a foster parent within, I think it's 2 months of taking the kid into their lives. So it's not just like an easy thing. The other thing that can happen that the kinship placement person is calling around to find is to exit the child to custody. So exiting to custody, and this all comes into, all of these things are related to the cases we've had. To exit to custody means the kid is no longer in DCS custody. Someone else is given custody of the kid. So if they have two parents that are known, and one parent is the reason the kid came in, who got the CPS investigation started and they came into care, the other parent, the child could exit to custody, right? So if one parent's an addict, the child could exit to custody to the other parent if they don't live together. They have to live in two different homes. If you're a grandparent, the child can exit custody to you if your house passes the DCS inspection that happens. So basically everybody that kinship placement is on the phone to is going to get an emergency home study done on their home. They're going to make sure you don't have firearms lying around, that nobody in your house is drug addicted. They'll all do drug tests. Then the next part of the process, assuming the kid entered traditional foster care, they came to a house like mine, somebody who's not a kinship placement. The next thing is that the people who the child was taken away from. So I'm just going to say birth parents, even though it's not always birth parents that the child was taken away from. The birth parents and the child have a 3-day court hearing. So this is supposed to happen within 3 days. There is a court hearing to say, why did the child come into custody? And basically DCS has to explain why they removed the child, and any associated charges are applied to the parents. So that's the 3-day, okay? So in my experience now, that 3-day court date doesn't happen in 3 days. The first case we got, the baby girl came to our house on a Friday. I literally heard from no one until the next Tuesday. And then they let me know that there would be a court case on Thursday. So it was within 4 working days of her coming into care. It was early Friday morning. She actually came into care late in the middle of the night, Thursday night. I got the call Friday morning. We got her Friday afternoon. Her court case was 3 business days later, which was actually Thursday. The parents had no idea what was happening. Like, they thought they might be able to take the baby home. I can't talk about what their charges were, but first case went home after 3 weeks because someone stepped forward as a kinship placement, decided to go through the foster care classes, and got their home in order. So there was nothing else, because at the end of the 3 weeks, a family member stepped forward and became a kinship placement. Now that case might still be going on, but I'm out of it, right? So there's a 3-day court case. The parents have to show up, whoever the child was removed from. So let's just say birth parents have to show up in order for the case to be adjudicated, meaning for the judge to go, this child should be in care and you are charged with this set of things that went wrong that brought your child into care. So in another case, I had one of the parents didn't show up. So the case was not adjudicated. Instead of the judge just going on and saying, okay, I'm going to adjudicate this case with that person's absence and the parent who is here, I'm going to say these are the charges and then come back. He said, let's just come back for another date in March. And that was December. And so the first case I had to show up at the 3-day court hearing with the baby. The second case I was on, I wasn't even told that the 3-day court date was happening. And usually on the same day they do that court date, they also do a meeting, they call it a CTFM, a child team family meeting, something like that. CFTM, child family team meeting, which is everybody on the child's team comes together in a room and explains what's going on. So they talk about what brought the kid into custody, what's going on, what next steps are, and often, so this usually happens on the same day, and in both cases for me, this happened on the same day as a 3-day court date. Often the birth family has no clue. They know what they did that brought the kid into care typically, because the person explained it to them when they took their baby away, but they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know when their kid is going to come back. They don't know what to expect. They literally have no idea how long this process is going to be and what's going to be expected of them, because they didn't go to 8 weeks of classes like I did. So I will often in these meetings ask questions that I think the families have, if I haven't heard the social worker explain to the family the timeline. Say you do everything in your plan, what's the timeline? Now, this is also a meeting where basically the birth family, it's the first chance you have as a foster parent to meet the birth family. So they're going to tell you things like, what's their favorite food? What does this word mean? Honey said nanu. What is nanu? Nanu means noodles. I had no idea. What are they afraid of dogs? Are they have sensitive skin? Anything that's really not a medical issue that wouldn't have come up when the kid came into care. Just give it what are their favorite things to play? You have no idea of this until that meeting, which again often happens on the day of the 3-day court case. And in my most recent case, she came into our house on Monday and that court date was on Thursday. So for those 4 days, I knew nothing about her. I knew nothing about her. They could have all been dead for all I knew. I knew nothing. And then I got a phone call that said, sorry, we didn't let you know this earlier. We're having the first CFTM. We had court this morning and we decided to all go back to the office and have this meeting. It'll be in 10 minutes. I was well, your office is 40 minutes away. So am I supposed to come? What? I don't know. So luckily my mom was here and she was able to keep Honey while I got on the phone for an hour, met her family for the first time, was able to ask some questions, figure out what was going on because I didn't know. And yeah, so they had their court date and I wasn't told about it. And then they had their meeting and a lot of things were explained to them for the first time. So that's the first step. Now, the next step is within 1 month, DCS has to have a permanency plan created. And you do that by having another meeting of everybody involved in the child's life, including the foster parents, the foster parent social worker, who's my social worker, the child social worker, and any family members who are involved either in the case or just are interested and can support the parents through this journey. So sometimes there's lots of people in the room. Sometimes there's nobody in the room. That permanency plan is to say what is going to happen, which will include visitation, and it will include the steps that the birth family needs to take in order to get their child back out of custody, which is new to me. I didn't know this because I didn't get to this point with our first case. It's supposed to happen within a month, and it typically happens exactly 1 month later. They don't do it 2 weeks in. They do it Honey came to us December 17th, and her meeting was January 15th. So it's exactly a month. So the social worker can request evaluations be done on the birth parents. Parenting, mental health, and addiction are the 3 main evaluations. And those evaluations will then tell the birth parent and DCS what services the parent needs to get in order to move through the process. Does that make sense? So maybe they need parenting classes because they literally don't know how to take care of the baby. Maybe they need nutrition classes because they're not sure how to feed the baby, or the baby's not taking a bottle, or the baby's failing to thrive. Maybe they need drug addiction services. They need to go through rehab, inpatient or outpatient. Maybe they need mental health services, like they have an untreated mental health disease, or they haven't been taking their medication for their mental illness. All of those things should, and I don't know what these evaluations are like, but they should be covered by the evaluation. And you want to get that evaluation as soon as possible so that the parents know what steps to take. So in that permanency plan, like I said, is a visitation, which is the thing that impacts me the most, but is also the steps that the parent will need to take for DCS to know that they're committed to creating a safe home for their kids again. So this probably includes, if there's a drug addiction problem, going to like AA meetings, showing up at AA meetings, getting a sponsor, getting a job if they don't have a job, getting a, there are all kinds of things that can be in this plan, and it's discussed very openly right there with me in the room. And it can be awkward because they will often, part of the process now is they're making it strengths based. So one of the first things they do is they ask the parents and the family members about their strengths, so that they can do, like, your strength might be you have a great support system. Your strength might be you've never been in trouble with the law. Your strengths might be you've always had a job. Strengths. And then they talk about what are the things you need to fix in order to be, they don't use the word fix, but what are the things you need to change in order to be a safe place for this child? What are the resources you feel like that you need in order to grow to the next step in your parenthood? And that all goes in the permanency plan. I sit there through all of it. We talk about when visitation will be. Typically, DCS needs to have the parent have a chance for visitation within the first 10 days. So your first visitation is going to be before this permanency plan meeting is even there. And then each week the visitation is kind of going to be up in the air. What happened with my most recent case is the judge decided not to adjudicate the case and just made another court date for March 17th. So typically you have the 3-day case, then you have a permanency plan meeting, and then you have a permanency plan hearing where the judge approves the permanency plan you've all made together. And then the parents work their plan. And then I think you have to revisit the plan every 90 days. So it's either 60 or 90 days. So then they check, are you following the plan this whole time? And throughout that, the parents are having their evaluations, they're having services. Are they showing up for visitation? Are they not showing up for visitation? Are they passing the drug test if that was a problem? And then within 60 to 90 days, all of that is looked at, and the permanency plan, a new one is made, or it's expanded, or they will schedule a court date for a judge to decide that it's complete and the child can go home. So does that make sense? Now, in this case, I'm not going to give you specifics, but I said it wasn't adjudicated at the 3-day trial. The next date was March 17th. We had the March 7th. We had the permanency plan meeting January 15th. One of the parents, the one who did show up in court on that first date, followed the permanency plan perfectly. Passed every test, did every evaluation, got every service, followed every step in the plan. And so when we went to court on March 7th, even though that court date was really only supposed to say, should this child have ever come into custody, and then approve the permanency plan, they decided that the child could go home. So typically, it doesn't resolve any sooner than 6 months, but this was 3 months of a parent working the plan and having a strong support system. So that parent didn't live alone. They lived with their parent who had already passed the home study, deemed to be a safe place for the kid to live. But the kid couldn't go to the grandparent as long as the parent still lived there until the parent did their steps, which is just how I'll say it. So I'm not going to go into the specific of the steps that the person had to do. So on March 7th, Honey went home to her family, which was fantastic. This whole case has been the best case scenario, part of the reason why we wanted to do foster care versus other ways of expanding our family is because of the possibility to impact as many people as possible, the opportunity to make the most change for the most people. And this case is an example of the change that can be made. And it's not me, it's the parent who did all of the steps they needed to do. All I did was give them the security and the encouragement that their child was in a safe place while they made the changes they need to make. And also, I encouraged them. I told them I was proud of them. I told them I thought they were doing a great job. I answered their question about how we do parenting, which, by the way, we're total newbies. And I would say that, like, you know her better than I do. And we shared parenting. Basically, I co-parented with a perfect stranger and my husband for the last, basically since January 15th. So every decision about like picture day, what pictures should we get for picture day, doctor's appointments. They went to every doctor's appointment with me. Do you think she needs to go to the doctor? She has this cough. She won't take this medicine. I'm going to call the doctor and ask about this. They told us we could give ibuprofen. So like, this is what she ate when she was with me. What'd she eat when she was with you? This is how we sit her on the potty. How do you sit her on the potty? All of that we co-parented from basically the time of the permanency plan meeting, January 15th, until she went home March 7th, which has given her a lot of consistency and a lot of structure and a lot of routine. They've decided to keep her in her daycare for the next couple weeks until she gets used to spending the night at their house. She'll keep doing in the day what she was doing when she was with me, which is great. It just provides like consistency. It doesn't totally break her life apart on that one day. The life that she's built for 3 months. Because when she came into care, her whole life and everything to do with her life was taken away from her. Everything. We literally had like 2 stuffed animals. And I washed all the clothes, so nothing smelled like home. Like nothing was the same. In December, we didn't want to do that to her again in March. So we kept a lot of things the same. Her and I send videos back and forth to each other each day. I send her videos of the puppies. We talk on the phone. Like, we're trying to keep it so that it overlaps as much as possible. All the weeks I packed her bag full of everything she uses at night, from the blanket to the Fluffy, which is Slothy, to her bath toys. I wrote down the schedule of what we do and they stuck with it. Just to help transition her and give her routine. So it's really the best case scenario of what you hope happens when you're working with a birth family. They didn't jerk her around. They did what they needed to do. They are great and loving and kind people. We're friends. And we're still like, we don't think of ourselves as co-parents anymore, but simply like aunties and uncles. Right? Like, we're the family friends that they can call. I'm going to pick her up from school a couple days from now. We're going to go to the park on the weekend. We're going to do things together. And, you know, like now we're just family support for their family. We're just like another little support system they have that can help make their days easier if they have to go to a job interview, if they have to go out of town because of a family illness, if they need to go back into rehab. Like, we're here for that. So that is longer than I expected, but the system is very, very fluid. So if the parent had not decided to work the plan, what would have happened is we would have kept doing permanency plan meetings where the permanency plan would be adjusted, kept getting those approved by a judge. At any point, this is the crazy thing, the judge is in complete control over if the kid goes back or not. So if at any point the judge can say, I think this kid should go back to the parent. Social workers have told me that they have had cases where DCS recommended they not go back. The CASA worker recommended they not go back. The lawyers didn't think they should go back. And the judge decided, I think they should go back. So you kind of never know. The court dates tend to be after that 3-day hearing. In my experience, it's 2 to 3 months later, and then 2 to 3 months later, and then 2 to 3 months later. Because remember, the parent is working the plan with DCS, but they typically have criminal charges that is going through the system as well. So that is our foster care journey so far. Those are the steps that we went through. Now the classes at DCS tell you what the different meetings are going to be and what the different court dates are going to be, like a generalized timeline, but you really, every single case is different. So thank you so much for watching. This has been longer than I expected, but I got into some of the details that I know you guys have been wondering about, and that if you're a new foster parent or you're thinking about becoming a foster parent, you're not quite sure what to expect from the different court dates or meetings. Hopefully that helped. I can't tell you what happens after 3 months because that's where our journey has ended so far. We will be open for more foster kids, not 4 more, but 4 more, up to 2 kids under 5 when I get back from San Diego. So next Monday through Thursday, I'm going to San Diego for a doTERRA leadership conference. After that, we'll start accepting kids, but we haven't gotten any phone calls in months. So it could be months before another placement. As soon as we have one, I will come and let you guys know. Thank you for all your encouragement. Thank you for all your sweetness. I will link up below the YouTube video the playlist of the whole process. So if you haven't watched the first videos in the process, you can see how much I've learned since then. It's been almost a year since we started this process. So yeah, thanks so much for being here and have a